Hello, everyone, and welcome back to SeeThroughPanel, a comic book discussion podcast. My name is Cole Harvey. I am here with Fahed Rahman.
Hello, everyone. Before we kind of go into the podcast proper, some of you may be aware, my mother passed away a couple of weeks ago, and some of you reached out to me. Some of our listeners reached out to me over social media to kind of send their condolence, and I just want to say thank you to them. It genuinely it meant a lot. So just thank you guys for keeping me and my family in your thoughts and prayers. So yeah.
Today, I know it's been a while since we've been here, but we're going to take it slow. We're just going to have a nice little chat about basically all things comics. I have a few questions for Fahed, just about himself as a comic reader. So I think I'll start with, we can both answer this. When did you start reading comics? Because I don't think I've ever actually asked you that. When did you start? What got you into them?
When did I start reading comics? So I think I was thinking about this recently, actually, and I thought the first comic book that I read was a Ghost Rider comic. But thinking back to it now, I think the first comic I probably read was an Asterix and Obelix comic that I probably borrowed from the library when I was maybe five, 6 or 7, around kind of around that age. So yeah, that's kind of the first comics that I kind of remember reading. Really, what about yourself?
Well, I read them as a kid, so I read a little bit of them as a kid, but I never got into it until like my maybe like my junior year in high school or something. I started getting really into them, and I think the first thing I read that really got me into it was Jeff Johns' Green Lantern, because obviously most people, at least American people, start out with superhero comics. But yeah, Green Lantern was like, I was hooked on that for a long time. Asterix, is Asterix the one? It's the like the big Viking guy, right?
So no, so Asterix is it's a French comic, and he's the short guy with the big ginger mustache, and he has got a giant friend as well.
Okay.
So yeah.
I
Yeah.
know I've seen
So
Asterix. I know it's like way more prevalent over across the sea, but I've never even read
yeah.
or seen it.
Oh, they are absolutely fantastic. Fantastic books. It's like I listened to a podcast about the translation from French to English, and in the native French language version of the comic, there's a lot of puns and wordplay that they had to work quite hard to kind of translate into English. So there's kind of it's got great action, great humor, and the characters and the plot lines are they're really kind of engaging as well.
Interesting. I'll have to check that stuff out. I've never been
I
like,
definitely should do.
yeah, I've always heard about it. It's like it's obviously like a classic thing, but never read it. When you started reading, like, was that it? Like, you immediately started reading a bunch of comics, or was that more like when you were a kid?
No, so that's kind of that just as I was a kid, and then I think I kind of devoured most of the. I mean, I actually got told off by a librarian once for kind of like hoarding all the Asterix, all the Asterix comics.
That's
So
amazing.
I think I went through those. Yeah, I think I went through those quite quickly, and then I think quite similar to you, I didn't start buying and reading my own comics until I was maybe 13, 14 years old, when I used to have a local comic book shop that I'd kind of go down to every couple of weeks to kind of get my haul of comics, and it was mostly kind of Spider-Man, X-Men comic books, and I quite liked the old Malibu line of comic books as well.
Malibu.
So
I'm not sure I know
those
what
are
that is.
so that's they were kind of when kind of in the mid-90s we had this proliferation of kind of imprints that were printing superheroes comics. So you had Image,
Yeah.
you had Malibu, you had Marvel, you had DC, Valiant, and all those guys. So Malibu was kind of one of those niche plays. I think they were eventually bought by Marvel in the
Hmm.
in the end. But yeah, so I quite like those comics. And then the other comics that I started reading around that time as well were the Preacher comics by Garth
Yeah.
Ennis. Is
Yes.
also kind of so it's kind of I think that is I think the Preacher comics were the first ones that actually kind of got me thinking about they're not just superhero comics sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. That's safe. For me, it was Sandman, but it's pretty much a
Yeah,
very similar thing. Yeah, that that Vertigo like period has a bunch of like just amazing comics that can kind of make you wake up and realize it's not all capes and stuff, which is really cool.
yeah, yeah. I think oh, I keep going back. I think actually the first comic I read was an Archie comic, but it's weird how you in my head I separate kind of comics in different categories. So that for me, like Obelix and the Archie comics that I had at home weren't comics because they weren't in like the magazine format,
Oh yeah,
if that makes sense. So
you
yeah,
have them
there's
like as
kind
a
of
book, like a collected book or something.
yes, I think the Archie one. I mean, I could probably post a picture of it on Instagram. It's absolutely dog-eared now. It's kind of the front page is missing, but yeah, I've had that for a very long period of time. So yeah, is a kind of is actually it's it's kind of I think it's just a collection of the newspaper strips. I'm not too up to date with kind of what Archie's kind of publication history is, but yeah.
Yeah, same. I've never actually. I think I'll admit this. Yeah, I've never read a single Archie comic. I can't think of a single one. It's not for me.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'll try it eventually. I read the criminal arc that's
yeah,
like making fun of Archie comics, kind of, which was
yeah,
really good.
yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, so kind of, you mentioned you started reading kind of junior high, and how did your kind of reading journey progress from there? You started off with superhero comics, and then what kind of what led you to kind of widen your horizons? You mentioned Sandman and
Yeah, so
that
I had
sort
a
of thing.
friend in high school. We're still friends actually, but he doesn't read comics anymore. So he got me into comics, and then I started reading all the stuff. He was giving me all the superhero stuff, and then he showed me Sandman, and then from there I just kind of got out on my own, and I actually had money because I was finally out of high school, so I could buy my own stuff,
Yeah.
which is a great feeling. And I think honestly, the first non-cape thing I read besides Sandman was East of West by Hickman at Image. Um,
Oh yes, yeah, yeah. I've read that.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
got
kind
the
of
Four
sci-fi
Horsemen of the
western.
Apocalypse. Yes,
Yeah,
it's really
yeah,
good, but
sci-fi western. Yeah,
it kind of just it's nothing like I mean I love the comic, but it's not like anything revolutionary. But it's kind of what made me realize that you could do anything because this was so outlandish and so and the art in that comic, uh, I hadn't thought about the art or probably I even checked the artists' names. And East to West is what made me read the credits page, figure out who Jonathan Hickman was, figure out who Nick Dragata was, and then from then on, I think I just kind of bought everything and became very broke after high school.
yeah,
And then I
yeah.
got yeah,
I went through a period where I was spending most of my money on comic books.
yeah,
So yeah, I can kind of understand, which is why I'm kind of really grateful for the fact that you know libraries in the UK stocked different graphic novels that I was able to kind of like feed my habit when I was broke. So just be able to kind of go down there and kind of read a few superhero trade paperbacks or trade paperbacks from kind of different creators like the classic you've got kind of the genre classics with Mouse or
mm-hmm.
um, Alan Moore stuff, and then kind of
Persepolis and stuff.
different Persepolis and that sort of things. Yeah,
Yeah, my library is over here. Um, they're great. Like it's a great resource, but for me, they pretty much only have stuff that I've read, like the big like Watchmen, V for Vendetta, Dark Knight
Yeah.
Returns. They have all the classics, which is amazing. But I've read all the classics, and I probably own a lot of them. So
Yeah.
they don't have anything really non-cape either.
Yeah. I think it might be worth speaking to your librarian about it. You know that you know for a long period of time, I went to a graphic novel reading group that was based out of one of the local libraries that I went to, and it was set up by a librarian. And you kind of she gave us kind of a lot of insights. Librarians are always kind of interested in kind of wanting to find out what people want to read, because the more books that they stock that are of interest to people, then the more people are going to come into the library and use it, and the more safeguarded their funding is going to be in the future. So they are kind of interested in finding out if there's a particular genre or format that people are interested in. Though that said, at my local library last time I went there before lockdown, there was a notice on the graphic novel section shelf asking people not to steal them,
Oh
which I
wow!
think is just such a shitty thing to do.
To
Why would you
steal
steal a
from a
book from a library?
library? Oh my
It
god,
is just,
that's awful. That's
horrendous.
I would.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why you'd steal from. That's just a place where people can read for free. You want more people to read, especially if you're into
Yeah.
comics. You want more people to get into comics. You're not gonna take their only
Yeah.
copy of Dark Knight Returns. That's goofy.
I don't know, man.
People are
It's,
crazy. I've learned that since 2016.
yeah. People are kind of crazy. Yeah.
So I was just gonna ask, unless there's anything you want to talk about, what we've been reading lately, because we haven't chatted
Yeah.
super
Yeah.
recently.
So that's a good one. What have you been kind of reading?
So I've actually never read V for Vendetta before
Oh, okay.
the last week, so I've been going through that. But Alan Moore obviously writes novels in the comic book form, so it's taken me a while.
Yeah.
And I just watched the movie on November 5th. That's the only reason. Um, it's obviously very, very good. I don't know if
Yeah.
anyone would agree with me. I'm sure everyone would. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
been really great. Have you read that?
Yeah, I've read V for Vendetta. So it's a very, very good book. I'm not too sure if it's like kind of one of Moore's. I mean, it's kind of held up as like one of Moore's classics.
Yeah.
Which I think it is. It's a fantastic book, but I don't think it kind of. I think the iconography rather than the story itself, because then the Guy Fawkes mask and kind of it's you need to know a lot about kind of British political history to kind of understand what he's trying to say with that novel. So it's a kind of a lot about the Thatcherite Britain and
Mm-hmm.
uh, yeah,
It.
Big Brother and all of that. So yeah,
I think it's good, but I don't want to be crucified by comic people. Uh, so far, I'm a little bit over halfway through. The movie's better. The movie's really good.
yeah, okay, okay, yeah, fair enough.
I just
Yeah,
think it's got
yeah,
that
I can,
more like grittiness. Like the movie, it starts, and she breaks curfew and gets caught by those messed up police officers. In the book,
yeah,
she's going out to prostitute herself, which is such an Alan Moore thing to do. I was like, not everything has
yeah,
to be so gritty all the time,
yeah,
but it's really
yeah.
good.
It's good. So you've been reading that, and what anything else that any other classics you've been catching up with, or other
Um,
books that you've?
I just picked this book up yesterday. I don't know how I feel. It's Metal Hurlant Selected Works. And when you think that, you think that it's going to be like some Mobius, some Philippe
Yeah,
Druillet.
yeah.
It's not. It's like almost entirely Americans, and it's mostly
Okay.
post 2000. So I don't know how this is the selected
Mm,
works of Metal Hurlant, but the work in here is really good.
okay.
It's good
Okay.
comics, but I don't understand how it's Metal Hurlant selected works. I just don't know.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. So I have been reading a few different things. So I've reviewed a few books from I think I've already mentioned on the previous episode of the podcast for from NetGalley. So the Zolas, which is a graphic novel about Vizola's. It's not a story I knew a lot about, and Pistuvi, which is just a beautiful, wonderful graphic novel for children, which is also, you know, if you've got kids in your life, kind of um, over the age of, like, I'd say 10, that's definitely a Christmas present that you should be getting for them. Outside of that, I think I posted a while back my substantial library haul. Just grab a couple of the books from there. So I have been reading. So one of the books that I grabbed was Maggie Garrison by Lewis Trondheim and Stephanie. I'm gonna take a. It's spelled Oiry, so I'm saying Oiry or Ori. I'm not too sure.
You got me.
Okay, which is kind of this. It's a very downbeat um, crime story about this down on her luck woman who becomes a private detective. So that's I really enjoyed that. It's very British. It's kind of yeah. So in terms of like comics with a really strong sense of place, this kind of like this comic is like so London. It's kind of like, oh, this is someone who's lived in London for a very long time, and kind of it really captures kind of not the glamorous side of it, but kind of the more kind of downbeat. I don't want to say gritty, but kind of the more working class side of the city.
Yeah.
So that I really enjoyed that. And then I was reading. I was reading a comic called 24 Panels, which is a charity anthology that was made to raise funds for the survivors of the Grenfell Tower fire. And there's
Oh
just
wow.
there's some really good work in here. So I think they've got some big names. I think Alan Moore's got a story in here. Um,
Oh, I did. I
and
just looked up the cover. I have heard about this.
so this, yeah, is really enjoyable. Some of the, when you get an anthology like this, I think it was they had some professionals do it, but they also opened it up to members of the public. So some of the comics, I think, are stronger than the others, but yeah, generally the standard of that was quite high. Um, so yeah, so that's kind of what I've been reading, and then I've got kind of quite a large pile of books that I've not been able to kind of get through yet either. So what's on your to be read pile?
Um, to my to be read pile. So I just got a book um called okay, it's gonna be Paramus, Perramus, The City and Oblivion. So that's by one of my favorite artists that I've found recently, Argentinian artist. I want to I want to make sure I get this right. One second. Argentinian names, I'm not great. So drawn by Alberto Breccia, which he is a master. He did Mort Cinder, which is one of the best things I read in 2019, and written by Juan Sasterain. So that's on my to be read. It's I don't know if you're looking up the art, but it's like that. It's very like washy
Oh
black and
wow,
white. Yeah,
yeah,
very like chiaroscuro contrasting black and white.
yeah,
I'm really excited for it. It's a big book though. I got the hardcover.
yeah.
It's gonna take me a long while probably, but that's my to be read.
It's kind of like the inking's very watery, if that makes
Yes,
sense. Kind of like, yeah, very fluid.
it
That's
almost looks
nice.
like watercolors, but black and
Yeah,
white.
yeah. Oh, that must have
Yeah,
taken them absolutely fucking ages.
right. This thing is insane,
Yeah.
and it's I could get a ballpark number here. It's at least 450 pages
Oh
of that.
wow. Yeah.
Yeah, so this guy's an absolute beast. Um,
Yeah. Okay.
and a lot of the stuff he's done, like Mort Cinder, they are commentaries of a military dictatorship in
Yeah.
Argentina, and
Yeah.
the writer of Mort Cinder was disappeared and never seen again by the government. So
Oh
like it's
shit.
real. it's real political. Yeah, it's crazy. So it also just makes the context of it much more interesting to me. So it's really fun to read that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you talk about context because there's after reading the kind of 24 panels graphic novel, I was kind of interested. So at the moment in the UK, there's an inquiry, public inquiry going on about what's happening in Grenfell, and it's just an unbelievable kind of. There's no other phrase that I can come up with to describe just a clusterfuck of incompetence from
Oh yeah.
everyone. From yeah, so it was well, it's not just the government, it was the contractors, it was everyone. Anyway,
Oh
so
god.
yeah. So on my to be read pile is I've got a few books I've got listed here that I managed to grab. So okay, so I've got Tilly Walden's Are You Listening? Which
Ooh yeah. I need to get
yeah,
to that.
have you heard of Tilly Walden at
I've heard
all?
of Tilly Walden, and I know she's like amazing, but I have not
Yeah,
read a single of her works.
yeah. So I read her last book, which is called On a Sunbeam, which was maybe one of the most beautiful books I think I've ever read. She's got a kind of Studio Ghibli esque
Hmm.
style of uh, illustration, and she does some really clever things around coloring, coloring the books in terms of shading. So yeah, so that's one I'm looking forward to reading, and then I've got The Wolf of Baghdad by Carlos Isaac, and it's so that that seems to be. I don't know too much about it, but on the back, it's got some pretty good reviews on the back of it, so I'm quite interested in reading that. And then I've got the other book that I kind of read over this weekend was Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips' Bad Weekend, which is a
Oh,
have you heard of it? Well,
I
it's
have it. I got the hardcover. I've yet to read it.
yeah, so it's really good. It's really fun. You can't really go wrong with the team of Brubaker and Phillips, but it's kind of a very uh, a very kind of like snarky look at kind of how the comic book industry has treated some of its legends, and kind of um, how working in the industry can really break you down, and kind of the convention scene and all that sort of thing. So it's kind of about this artist that's retired, but he's been drug out to this convention to kind of like sign autographs, and he's really just not interested. He just wants to get drunk with his mates. So that's yeah, it's quite a good one. And then the last one I've got is quite a substantial one. It's called Angola Janga, Kingdom of Runaway Slaves by Marcello de Sellet, and it's um, kind of I think a history of kind of Angola. So kind of the history of the Kingdom of Angola, and it's about fugitive slaves and that sort of thing. So that it's quite a substantial book. I think it's just looking at it now, it's at least 400 pages long. So
Oh wow.
I'm looking forward to reading that as well.
I'm looking at the art for that right now. It looks really, really good. I've never heard of this.
Yeah,
The writer or the book itself.
yeah. I mean, I just came across most of these books by looking at my library's online catalog and seeing what I could get. So yeah, it's quite good when
I
they've
can't
got kind of a
believe.
diverse.
Yeah, your library has such diverse like non. They have indie stuff. They have like mine is just Marvel, DC, and Image.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
jealous of that. Do you read any manga or like anything like that?
So I do read um, manga. I kind of tend to stay away from the um, kind of more I don't say commercial stuff. What's the word I'm looking for?
Like the shonen, like the
Yeah,
typical.
yeah, kind of. Yeah, do you know what I mean? Kind of like things like
Hmm.
Naruto or
Yep.
Dragon Ball Z and that sort of thing. I really enjoyed Akira. What's the other one that I enjoyed? Doctor Blackjack or something.
I've not read that.
Blackjack. So he's kind of this rogue surgeon that goes around, um, yeah, kind of carrying out surgery on people. What's it called? Nausicaa Valley of the Wind. Kind of, it's got
Yes.
a lot of the kind of really kind of more classical stuff. I haven't read a bunch of the kind of newer stuff that's come out, but I think maybe that's because I don't know, kind of the Dragon Ball Z stuff doesn't really appeal to me. Yeah, that the princess here, transformational stories don't really kind of
Yeah, same here.
appeal to me, and that's kind of what seems to be available mostly over here at the moment. So, and I know that obviously the comic book scene in Japan, the manga scene in Japan, they do publish all sorts of story, but I don't know if the stuff that I'd kind of be interested in is reaching kind of Western shores or not. I don't know if you know more about that than kind of maybe I do.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. So I would love, like, I have my manga shelf is decently large. It's not crazy, but I know that like everyone has a large selection of genre, and I'm sure
Yeah,
they do too. But most of the stuff that comes out is aimed at like teenagers and stuff like that, and that's like the most prevalent genre for them. So I've just been going to classics, like Berserk, Akira.
yeah,
I have yet to finish Akira. I've been reading it so slowly, like 2 books a year out of I think there's
yeah,
6. And
yeah. They're
then Junji
absolutely
Ito.
massive books as well. I mean,
Yeah,
they're
they're
absolutely
dense.
monstrous volumes.
Yeah, and there's always so many manga volumes. Like if you wanted to
Yeah,
read one of the more popular ones, you'd have like 100 volumes. And I like to
yeah,
collect physically, so if I were to do that, I would just have manga in a whole room. Like
yeah. It's yeah,
I like the standalone stuff. One of my favorite ones is called Blame. Just blame with an exclamation mark. I think
yeah.
they say blam when they say it out loud.
Okay,
Uh, it's really like it comes off almost as like one of those shonen action things, but it's very like psychedelic. Um, the art is probably some of the best manga art I've ever seen.
okay.
I don't want to butcher this name. Su Sut Sutomu Nihei. I don't know, but he was a master. He does a current manga now called Knights of Sidonia, but that's more
Isn't
aimed
that a
at.
Netflix thing? I'm sure I saw
Yes,
that on Netflix. Yeah,
it's aimed
yeah,
at more like the teenagers, and he adapted his art style. Before he was like all blacks, like a ton of ink on the page,
yeah,
and I think I read an interview. He just wasn't very popular when that he was doing that, and so he
yeah.
switched, and now it's almost entirely white space and like very thin lines, and he doesn't ink almost anything. And I
Okay, that's
cannot
interesting.
really look at that and love it as much as the original. And also just the genre has changed to be a kind of more typical mecha anime thing. But
Which
yeah,
is
Blame is.
absolutely fine. There is,
Yeah.
yeah, but it's just not the sort of thing that kind of appeals to me at this moment in time. I'm sure I'm gonna swing around to maybe kind of start reading that um sort of thing again, but just at the moment, for me, it just doesn't appeal.
Oh yeah, I feel the exact same way. Anytime I don't want to read something, I always try and understand that there's like for every one person that doesn't want to, there's probably 10 people that's their favorite thing. Like I'm sure people love Knights of Sidonia and they probably hate Blame, but
Yeah,
I think Blame is perfection.
yeah. I think one of the thing, kind of one of the virtual events I've attended over the past month is the UK's comics creator survey kind of seminars that they were doing, and um, in terms of like what's commercially successful here, kind of these manga sized books are are really successful in the UK. Kind of, the Naruto's, the Dragon Ball Z's, Sailor Moon, that sort of thing, and publishers are kind of looking for work that kind of fits into that kind of the physical dimensions of what a manga book would come in. I have read some manga recently. I'm just trying to going through my list of books that I've read kind of find what the name of it was called.
You guys have a big manga scene there too?
I ish. I think there is quite a large, as large as the UK scene is in terms of reading comics. I think there is kind of the same sort of. Is weebo an offensive term? Kind of that kind of people that love kind of Japanese culture and that sort of thing, and I think that does cross over with people that read comic books as well. So wouldn't be able to tell you kind of terms of financially how large it is, but whenever I go into the library, half the comic books on there are mangas. Um,
Same.
so that's kind of, I think that kind of, I think is kind of demonstrative of the fact of how popular it is. Yeah.
Yeah, ours is similar. I feel like I don't know the numbers or anything, but I feel like there's probably twice the amount of people reading manga than reading American comics. Like they wouldn't even bat an eye at reading manga, but reading comics for some reason, like American comics or Western comics, for some reason, they think it's weird. But then they'll go watch anime and read manga, and I'm like, it feels like the same
Yes,
thing.
that is weird. That is weird. That's kind of, again, something that's come up um, at kind of a lot of the seminars that networking events that I've been to, in terms of, because we want to grow the comic book scene here in the UK, to kind of, because we've got lots of talent here. It's just for some reason people in the UK don't buy comics. And it's just
Yeah,
kind of what we're
yeah.
trying to get to, where France, Germany, um, America, and Japan are. But yeah, it's a difficult riddle to kind of solve, really. Yeah,
You put
tricky.
American. I wonder. I kind of assumed Britain had a bigger scene than America, but
No way. No,
no.
no, no,
I
man.
consider the
All
American
our
scene
all
pretty
our
small.
best talent goes to work for US companies.
Wow.
There's very there's kind of there's not a lot of money to be made in the UK
Actually,
scene.
that kind of makes sense. A lot of British writers are killing it and have been killing it in the American scene.
Yeah,
Like our best writers here are not
yeah,
American.
yeah, yeah. It's kind of, it's just the way that it is, unfortunately. Yeah. What else did I want to talk about? Have you been to any of these like online comic book festivals? And if you have, what have you kind of made of them at
I
all?
have not, sadly. I've been pretty busy lately, and I just never, I never stayed up to date on all that event stuff. I would
Yeah.
like to try it. Like, what do you, where do you get all your like upcoming news and like what to look out for?
So for me, this is just kind of from the British end of things. There's a website called Down the Tubes and Broken Frontier, and they've both got pretty comprehensive lists of at least UK conventions that are happening at the moment. And then there's a couple of people that I follow on Twitter that just happen to be posting about events. And then Eventbrite, sometimes I'll just go onto Eventbrite and just type in comic books and just see comic books or graphic novels and see kind of what comes up. The only reason I mention it is kind of Thought Bubble is going on at the moment, which is kind of one of the
Mm-hmm.
bigger two independent um, British comic book festivals, and I think it's kind of interesting how they're kind of running it. So mostly they're kind of running a mix between Zoom calls, and they're just posting YouTube videos of pre-recorded discussions. So it's kind of nice that you're able to kind of interact if you want to, but if you're kind of got screen fatigue, you can just watch the YouTube video later on as well. So yeah,
I'm gonna need to check some of that stuff out. I've never been big on, like the live events or anything. I've never been to a con.
Me neither. Me neither. I mean, I've only been to like a couple of local cons. Myself and John were planning on going to Fort Bubble this year, but
Oh,
obviously that didn't happen for kind of like for obvious reasons. But yeah, it was yeah, it's not really, never really. I don't like large crowds. If I'm being honest with you, I've got quite, I've got social anxiety, and being out in a large crowd like that where there's kind of like lots of noise and you can't really hear yourself think, not generally speaking my idea of a good time.
yeah, I would agree. If I did at all like large crowds before this year, that's all gone now. I can't
Yeah,
even remember if I did or not.
yeah. That's a fairly funny. That's true. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
reality's weird this year, man.
It's been a it's been a really shitty year. It's been a really weird, shitty year, man. Kind of like, and it's not
Right.
over yet. It's not over yet.
It's not. Anything could happen. We got about a month and a half left.
Oh
Yeah.
yes, yeah, yeah. Let's see if the aliens turn up. I don't know what else is
God,
gonna.
they might be a good thing if they do at this point. I mean,
Yeah,
we'll
yeah. I,
see.
for one, welcome our robot overlords, as, as the man said. So yeah. Is there
The one
anything
good
else you
thing
want
about
to?
this year,
Yeah, go ahead.
I have read a lot of stuff, not just comics. I've read like 13 books, which I think before this year, like prose novels, I had not read a book since like 2013. Uh,
That's really interesting, because I've really struggled to read prose. I've struggled to read kind of like comic books at times. I've been more kind of reliant on audiobooks. So I've been kind of
yes.
going through audiobooks at a pretty decent clip. But yeah, I've been kind of struggling to sit down and read. I think the last book that I read was John Connolly's The Dirty South, which is
Hmm.
like John Connolly. He writes this character called Charlie Parker, and it's a supernatural detective story, but you're not too sure how, if the supernatural elements are real or not. So it's
Ooh.
just superb noir with like perhaps supernatural elements to it as well. What have you been kind of reading that's kind of traditional long
Um,
form prose?
I've been heavy into escapism this year,
Yeah,
like many of us have. I started reading a bunch of fantasy, just like magical fantasy
yeah.
novels. So I read all of the Witcher books, uh,
Okay,
which all my friends are huge on the games. I never played the games. They have a show on Netflix which was pretty good, but I read all 7 of those, and then I've moved on to Joe Abercrombie, a British writer,
yeah.
has written some of the best fantasy fiction I've ever seen. It's called The First Law. Um, I read
I
the first
saw those books.
trilogy.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
amazing. They are incredible. If you like fantasy in any way,
Yeah.
they're hilarious. And they're kind of like every time you expect them to zig, they zag, and they're always doing something completely different than any fantasy novel would do. Actually, Francois Vigneault, I saw on his blog, he
Yeah.
reviewed one of them, so he
Okay.
must be into them too. I should have asked him
Yeah.
about that, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of been all I've been doing because I have a job that allows me to sit at a
Yeah.
desk.
Just and read, which is
Yeah,
good. Okay. That's
that's
good.
pretty much
That's
all
good.
I've been up to lately.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to chat about?
No, not really, man. No.
All right. Well, I think it's about time to wrap it up then.
Okay. All right, guys. So, guys, thank you very much. We will be back to something like semi regular service. Yeah. So, thank you very much for listening.
Yeah, thanks guys. Don't forget, check out our tip jar, our
Yeah.
Pinecast tip jar. The link will be in the description. Any donations help keep us on a regular schedule, keep us motivated.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, and make sure you read Francois Villon's Titan. That's finally out. So
Yes.
please go read that. That's one of the books of the year.
If
Okay.
you didn't
Thanks.
pre-order it, I will put the Amazon link in the description of this.
Yeah. Please, guys. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Bye.